Hello, welcome to our podcast. Today we're talking about Chronicles in Stone by Ismail Kadare. A magnificent novel. It won the Booker Prize in 2005. Usually that's indication that it's a good book, but it is such a novel that seems to open as you read, the doors of your own memory, because it's so difficult sometimes to plunge back into childhood, because childhood is this place in our past where sometimes it's all wonderful and painful at the same time. And what we have here, it's a dive through time, through the memory of a young child who is highly imaginative, who observes the world around him that he doesn't really understand, which at the same time is chronicling a world which is dying, a pre-modern world awakening to modernity, horrified. The adults are usually horrified by what they see. They think it's doom coming to them, whatever change comes to their village, their ancient village. But the memory of these events exists in politics in a very official manner. Have you ever heard people say that history stays bland list of dates unless and until the events are brought to life by the lived experiences of how people went through these events? That's how the pages of history come to life. Well, this is what Chronicles in Stone does. It's a delightful take on memory and place. The young boy, often incomprehendingly watching, observing, recording the events around him, has yet a wonderfully vivid imagination. And because of this, he reinvents the world around him. What he doesn't understand, people from the films he sees, people he imagines come to populate the world around him, and they coexist with reality. The story itself, Chronicles in Stone, was written in many phases. First a short story, then a longer version until it became the novel. And it's based on the author's own memories as he was growing up in the city of Girocaster, a small village in stone. Honestly, look at the pictures, look at it, and you will understand. It looks like one of these ancient European towns whose stone buildings and cobbled street takes you back through time. Look at the way the author describes his city as he looks at the cobbled streets and its ancient houses. Baroche Street crept painfully uphill alongside the gullies, while on the right Jobek Street plunged down steeply, skirting the Italian nuns' cardboard houses, as if it were plague-stricken, and then crashed into Baroche Street, a collision from which both streets emerged crooked. Further on, Fool's Alley, blind and obstinate, lurched towards Gentile Gymnasium Street, which dodged it at the last minute with a clever twist. Then Fool's Alley, as if looking for trouble with other streets, tumbled around the street with sudden sharp turns. When he is sleeping at night, helplessly thinking of the much older woman whose beauty he cannot forget, the imaginative little child comes forth and repopulates his grandfather's attic as a landscape of epic battle where Genghis Khan and his hordes are fighting each other. But the real story of the politics of Albania were quite tragic. Here is how it goes. In 1939, Mussolini invaded Albania and annexed it to the short-lived Italian Empire. In 1940, the Italian army stationed in Albania invading Greece. With the help of the RAF pilots, the Greeks retaliated, and there was heavy artillery and bombing which devastated the countryside. Then Italy counterattacked. The small village of Girocaster changed hands several times. Then Italy capitulated to the Allies in 1943, but when it was all over, it was the German army who was in charge of the small village of Girocaster. And how do people live through such trauma? How are lives affected beyond the daily tally of official death counts and news report? The keen observant eye of the young narrator in the text gives us such an insight into how the ordinary villagers live through it, their fear. And one thing we notice is that gossip is an important element for transmission of information. And because it's gossip, it's inflated, it's distorted, it's transformed, but it's side by side with the reality. Because he spends a lot of his time among women, we get to hear a lot about the colorful women around him with all their idiosyncrasies and their colorful names. His mother, his grandmother, their neighbors, friends form the gossip network of the village through which news is transmitted. Remember, we're talking about a time before the advent of the newspaper and all modern form of communications, where word would only travel by word of mouth and often got distorted in the process as the bearer colored his message with his own understanding of events. In this manner, the narrator hears of big events from the world, the invading troops, the bombing, the posting of Italian soldiers, the forming of the resistance through the incredulity of the women of the village. The general feeling of the elders is always that the world is coming to an end. They see every change as calamity, the positive as well as the negative event. The narrator, he just observes and chronicles. When he does not understand, for instance, the intricacies of adult relationship and asks, he's told, this is not for him. In this way, the main narrative has a delightful dual level of innocence and sadness about it. Innocence as it is located at the time of events being told, but at the same time at the time of writing. The nostalgia for a world and its way of life which has disappeared, side by side with the expansive chapters where the young narrator moves between observation and imagination. We have succinct description of real political events which happened around those times. Most of the town dwellers are suspicious of the invaders, and rightly so. But for the most part, they are resigned to accept their fate, except for the two young men, Isa and Javier, two leftist revolutionaries close to the Albanian Communist Party. They are the only two young men who understand political events differently and bring in concepts new to the provincialism of their world. Significantly, they are the ones who first lend the young boy a copy of Macbeth. And as he reads, he discovers the magic of words. Here is what he says. I had entered a kingdom of words where a merciless tyranny reigned. The world was suddenly filled with people who had pumpkins for heads. Others had heads that spun and eyes that threw knives. Some had blood that froze like ice. Others wandered about with forked tongues, gold fingers, or iron fists. A slab of flesh pierced by two eyes would pop up here or there. The city itself was feverish. I had seen the window panes shiver and had even seen their greyish sweat. Someone was walking around on his unearthed roots. Others, like madmen, asked idiotic questions. Where are your ears? Where are your eyes? Someone was trying to devour someone else, not with his teeth, but with his eyes. Unknown painters were blackening the door of a house, or the fate of some young girl. Where did these painters come from, I wondered, and why were they doing it? And anyway, why did people care so much about whether their destiny was painted black or white? Words, the magic of words. As he grows up to discover them, and he's feverish when he discovers this magic of words. He says, I slept so fitfully I had a fever. I could just barely feel a steady, labored breathing coming from the outside. The city seemed to be scratching itself in slow motion. It was a painful transformation. The streets swelled, twisted. The walls of houses grew thick and turned into the battlements of Scottish castle. Fearsome keeps loomed up here and there. This is a truly magnificent novel. And the beauty of the writing is, you can feel the beauty of the writing through the translation. Beautifully nostalgic, sometimes comical, sometimes tragic, as Polonius would say. Tragical, comical, historical, pastoral. We hope you have enjoyed this short podcast. Turn in for more soon and don't forget to subscribe. Until soon, goodbye.